dead man won the war. In the spring of 1943, the outcome of the Second World War hung on a single question. Where would the Allies invade Europe? The obvious answer was Sicily, the shortest crossing from North Africa, the most logical stepping stone. Every German general knew it. Every map pointed there. So, British intelligence decided to make the Germans believe the obvious answer was wrong. They did it with a corpse, a briefcase, and a lie so elaborate it should never have worked. This is Operation Mincemeat. The problem was simple and enormous. The Allied invasion of Sicily required the element of surprise, but surprise was nearly impossible. Sicily was the obvious target. The Germans had reinforced it accordingly. An invasion against prepared defenses would cost tens of thousands of lives. Someone in British intelligence asked a question that should not have been asked in polite company. What if we gave the Germans a body? Not a prisoner, not a defector. A corpse carrying false documents. Documents that would convince German high command that the real invasion was coming somewhere else entirely. The plan was audacious. It was also, by any reasonable measure, insane. It worked anyway. The man chosen to carry the deception did not volunteer for the mission. He could not. He was already dead. Glyndwr Michael was a Welsh vagrant who died in London in January 1943, likely from ingesting rat poison. He had no family who would miss him, no fixed address, no record that anyone was looking for him. British intelligence gave him a new identity. He became Major William Martin of the Royal Marines. He was given a name, a rank, a photograph, a fiancée named Pam, whose love letters were tucked into his pocket, a wallet with receipts and ticket stubs and the accumulated debris of a real life. He was given official documents, letters between senior British officers discussing invasion plans, letters that mentioned, in the careful way that classified documents mentioned things, that the real targets were not Sicily, but Greece and Sardinia. Sicily, the letters implied, was a deliberate feint. The documents were genuine in every detail except one. The information they contained was entirely false. The uncomfortable part. Here is what nobody tells you about Operation Mincemeat. The British were not sure it would work. They were not even sure the body would be found. They were not sure the documents would reach German intelligence. They were not sure the Germans would believe them if they did. They were gambling with a dead man and a briefcase against the lives of tens of thousands of soldiers. And the man who approved the operation, he knew that if it failed, men would die on Sicilian beaches who might have lived if a different decision had been made. That weight is not in the history books. It sits underneath the story, invisible and enormous. The officers who designed Operation Mincemeat were not heroes in the comfortable sense. They were people making impossible calculations about acceptable losses. In a war where every decision was already a choice between bad and worse. Remember that the next time someone describes the war in simple terms. On April 30th, 1943, HMS Seraph surfaced off the coast of Huelva, Spain, in the early hours of the morning. The crew brought a canister up from below. Inside was the body of Major William Martin, preserved in dry ice for the journey. They lowered him into the water. They attached his briefcase to his wrist with a chain. They watched him drift toward shore. Then they submerged and left. What happened next depended on a local Spanish fisherman, on the sympathies of Spanish officials, on the internal politics of a nominally neutral country quietly friendly to Nazi Germany, and on the fundamental human instinct to notice something unusual floating in the water. The fishermen noticed. The body was recovered. The documents were found. Spanish officials passed copies to German intelligence before returning the originals to the British with a straight face and diplomatic courtesy. German intelligence analyzed the documents. They concluded they were genuine. They reported to Berlin that the Allied invasion would target Greece and Sardinia, not Sicily. Hitler transferred 2 Panzer divisions from France to Greece. He reinforced Sardinia. He left Sicily relatively exposed. On July 9, 1943, Allied forces landed in Sicily. The defenders they faced were a fraction of what they would have faced if the Germans had been prepared. The map ends here. The territory continues. Operation Mincemeat saved an estimated minimum of 40,000 Allied lives. Some historians put the number higher. A vagrant who died alone in London, whose death was unremarkable and unmourned, became the most important corpse of the 20th century. He did not know he was going to war. He had no choice in the matter, and he won. The deception did not end with the landing. For weeks after the invasion began, German high command continued to believe that Sicily was the feint. They held forces in reserve. They waited for an attack that never came. Because the lie had been so complete, so carefully constructed, so deeply believed, that even reality could not immediately dislodge it. This is what successful deception looks like at its limit. Not just making someone believe a false thing, making them continue to believe it, even when the truth is happening in front of them. The Germans watched Allied forces pouring into Sicily and told themselves this was misdirection. They were wrong. They knew they were wrong only when it was too late. Major William Martin was buried in Huelva with full military honors. The grave exists. You can visit it. It reads, William Martin, born 1907, died 1943, beloved son of John Glyndwr Martin and the late Antonia Martin. None of that is true. His real name was Glyndwr Michael. He was not a major. He was not a Marine. He was a homeless man who died of rat poison and was borrowed by history for a purpose he never knew about and could not have consented to. The grave is real. The man beneath it is real. Everything written on the stone is fiction. For decades, his real identity was not publicly confirmed. The official line was that it could not be revealed out of respect for his family. He had no family. The ambiguity was not about respect. It was about the uncomfortable truth that a man who had no power, no status, no one to speak for him, had been used by the state for a purpose he never agreed to, and that this use had been enormously beneficial. That neither of those facts canceled out the other. In 1998, his name was added to the gravestone. Glyndwr Michael served as Major William Martin. 55 years after the operation, 55 years after the war, he finally got his name back. It is a small thing. It is the only thing anyone could give him. And it was given.